just as we reported back in the Water Rates Committee report, we need to set a public hearing date, and we're suggesting October 11th as an appropriate date for us to, as a board, for you to set that public hearing date to adopt the 2017 water rates. And that should give us sufficient time for the Water Rates Committee to complete their work, along with allows us an opportunity to contact our customers and get their input, and also to give the board sufficient time to review the proposal that's dropped out.
I move on board order 7A.
Second. Any more discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Approved.
Tonight I'll give you an update on our exchanges and storage programs we're working on. We've got 3 of those that are in the works. Give you a quick update on the California water fix. I'm sure that's your favorite topic. And then Sites Reservoir. I think I've given you kind of highlights of Sites Reservoir, but I'll give you a little more detail on that. Our exchange and storage programs, as you remember, we have Central Coast Water Authority. That is a 2-for-1 exchange. That one is for Santa Barbara area. Santa Clara, very similar. We're talking about 10,000 acre feet, loaning them 10,000 acre feet, and they return it within 10 years. And then the Metropolitan one that has an exchange component and a storage component. All of these are, good news is we've got them all signed. Everything's good as far as the agencies are concerned. And the next step is then the Department of Water Resources has put together what they call a 3-party agreement. So you have AVEK, Central Coast, and the Department of Water Resources, which kind of approves it's their form of approval of the agreement. That is all 3 of those are with the Department of Water Resources now. Good news is Santa Clara isn't waiting for that to happen. They're actually got a check in the mail to us. So Central Coast, as you remember, that's about $2.5 million to the agency. Santa Clara is about $3.5 million, and Metropolitan is about $1 million for exchange, and then about $1.5 million for storage. So these are all going to be good financially for the agency, and we're moving ahead with them. I did. Yes.
All right. So I heard some more good news. Did you say that Met actually signed it already?
Yeah, I think they've approved it, signed it. So now the next step is get the Department of Water.
They did sign it.
Yep. Yeah, that is really good news. I think that's quite a milestone for us, I think. I'm kind of breezing through these things because I feel like I've told you a lot about them, but yeah, it's all good.
It's 7/16, so it's loud.
Yeah. We do. So the issue now is kind of keep the pressure on the Department of Water Resources to get these agreements approved. They have draft agreements that they haven't been willing to share with us yet, but they're working on draft agreements. There is what we call a transfer committee that's scheduled for next week. Next week is when we have the State Water Contractor Board meeting and so forth, and a lot of the briefings. We scheduled this transfer committee on Tuesday of next week so we can get an update on these, get the department behind it, and they attend this meeting. I think the proponents have felt, Santa Clara, Central Coast, if we don't get something by next week, we need to talk to management so that we can get these things resolved. So, because I think everybody's anxious to get the water moving. And so that's going to be our assignment for next week, to just keep these things rolling ahead. It does take a lot of care and feeding sometimes, to keep these things moving forward, make sure the department is getting what they need, make sure that the agencies that are working with us provide the information that's needed. So we're continuing to keep that moving forward. So good news on that.
Dan, can I ask a question?
Sure.
We had one done last year for Santa Clara. What is the difference?
Excellent question, Director. In fact, the one this year is probably less creative than last year's. Last year, I think we really kind of broke through some barriers. It was a little more. It was more money. It had a couple of extra components. This year is pretty straightforward. 2-for-1 exchange with some dollars attached, and a payback in 10 years. So it is. They are both the Central Coast and the Santa Clara one are more straightforward than what we did last year.
Isn't the guy that signed last year still working for him?
Yeah, that's another good question. Yeah, he is still working there, and that's really what.
That's your job.
Yeah, that's my job is to make sure these move forward, and I think my concern that I expressed to him today was. There are other exchanges that are going on, and I don't want the straightforward ones to be held up because they're worried about the creative ones. So we'd like these things to move forward. Like I say, fortunately, Santa Clara said we've already allocated the funds. We'll send you a check. The other two, not quite as quick to do that. So yeah, we're gonna keep working on this. I'll keep pressing. Then just to give you an update on the California water fix, and this is the twin tunnels. Just to give you a little background, this is regulatory restrictions are really the biggest threat we have. That they're going to have new things on fish, and they're going to have more restrictions on us at the pumps in the Delta. Seismic event is another big risk. If you had a lot of levee failures in the Delta, you'd have an interruption in deliveries. And then sea level rise. The thing about the California water fix is you're moving up the system. You're capturing water on the Sacramento River rather than waiting for it to get all the way through the Delta. So those are kind of the risks involved. And the Twin Tunnels is really a wet year water transport. It gets water south of the Delta when you have a good wet year. This year we lost 485,000 acre feet because of fish restrictions and so forth that we figure that we could have gotten south of the Delta if we had the Twin Tunnels. Unfortunately,
that's what I was trying to sell us on.
That's kind of I'm kind of giving you the advantages of the proposal. This year we didn't have any transfer capacity. Basically our ability to get water south of the Delta is limited, and if you had a transfer, if you bought water in Northern California, you would not be able to get it across the Delta this year. The tunnels would help that. The tunnels are going to take about 15 years to construct. So it's a long-term project. It's $15.7 billion that will be split between state and federal users. So that's kind of the background that I think you've heard before. Yes.
And it's already gone up almost $5 million from $11 billion when we first talked about it. And with 15 years involved, it'll be double that.
They figure that delays every day cost $1 million.
So we just scrap like we're going to make money. Take our surplus water, build more water banks, put the water in the ground.
And that may be what the board of directors. The bottom line on my my presentation tonight is that it's delayed another 6 months. I keep coming and saying, well, it looks like it might be decision time, but unfortunately, the Federal Fish and Wildlife Agency has not engaged in this process. And they made a commitment, okay, we'll get engaged and we'll get the record of decision resolved by the end of the year. So basically, they were shooting for July, and so they've delayed it another 6 months.
Is there any public vote required on this?
There's been a lot of discussion about that. That there is some legislation proposed that there would be a vote of the people on it.
What happened to that a couple of years ago? It was going to come before the voters. Whatever happened to that?
Yeah, it didn't make it.
Because the economy, the crowd scrapped it.
Yeah, the governor is.
Is this similar? Is this a lot of the same issues on that?
Actually, I think there were 3 pieces of legislation that were proposed, and I think one of them did make it through. That you know, it might be something that's on the ballot. But yeah, that's been discussed quite a bit. I mean, some people would argue this was authorized already. Why do we keep asking permission? But yeah, there's a lot of folks in Northern California and the Delta want to keep bringing it to the people because the thing has changed. I mean, honestly, even, you know, since we've been discussing it in the last 5-6 years, they've moved from from a canal to a tunnel. They've moved the alignment further east. They've changed the intakes. Instead of being pumped intakes where they pump the water down south, they actually are gravity, where they have intakes that are very low velocity so they don't suck any fish up next to the screens. They actually drop down 150 feet and then it goes down to the South Delta, and then they pump it out at the South Delta and put it into. So they've made some changes as far as the alignment and the design criteria.
So who's the main pusher of this?
Well, you mean of the twin tunnels? I think.
It's the contractors.
Yeah, I think Metropolitan Water District has continued to support this. I think the governor has continued to support it. Yeah, that's.
You know, it wasn't that many years ago. We didn't have any water south of the hill. I remember the aqueduct was being put in during the 60s and early 70s, and you know, this state water project has brought a lot of people in Southern California. So do they want to bring more water so there's more people in Southern California? So, I mean, you got to look at the pros and cons right there.
Yeah, and I think in the coming months, I think as a board of directors, you're going to want to evaluate this.
Look at the Antelope freeway.
Yeah, it is a major infrastructure.
Just wonder if that tremendous cost, if it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean,
what it's going to do.
Some agencies in Southern California feel like it's it's $5 a month per household, and they say
But what's it going to do, Dad? It's going to bring more gridlock.
Well, I don't know. I'm not an advocate for it or anything like that, but the argument is that it's to protect you from future reductions. You know that the regulatory reductions are going to continue to erode your yield. And
I think some of the city water contractors need this because they have no way to store water. We're in a whole different program.
Yeah.
We're the answer. We're the solution by putting water. If you put 1 million acre feet of water in this valley, they're going to have water when that thing collapses. But the thing I want to ask you, Dan, can we bring back to what we said to Dwayne 3 years ago, somewhere around there, you and me attended Aqua, or it was one of them, and they had the guy give the presentation, and he calculated it was going to run about $6 million a year for them to maintain. Yeah, $6 million a year to maintain if we participate in the twin tunnels under our allocation of our percentages. It was some crazy number the guy showed. It was like around $6 million a year for this agency. And I said, how are we going to? We have to raise taxes, raise water rates so high that to offset an additional $6 million that we're doing right now. Can you tell us what our cost is going to be if this agency was going to do that? One, our down payment, but the one I'm really worried about is the maintenance fee when it's down the road.
Yeah,
I mean, we're going to bring up the board is we take all that money. How much water can we buy to put in this valley when it comes to groundwater recharge? And that's what we have to take a look at.
I think AVEK is in a very different position than a lot of contractors are. I mean, you have a large table A that you've been paying for 50 years. You have groundwater backup. You've done a lot of things to really firm up your supply. So you're in a very different position than other agencies, and you're a lot more, I think, sensitive to tax increases than some. Some are just like, we'll stick it on the tax rate and nobody will know. So that, I think of the 29 agencies that participate in the state water project, all of them have different motivations, different funding structures, and so forth.
We got a heck of an insurance policy with our table A, 140,000 plus. Groundwater, we're in an enviable position.
Yeah, I think you're in a different position. But those are the things you need to factor in as a board of directors when it comes to making a decision. You're not at that point yet, but there will be things that you probably want to evaluate and see. There is also, a couple other things to mention is that the way they're structuring it now is you could participate at different levels. You don't have to participate at full table A like you did the first time around. So you don't have to be the third largest participant in this canal or the tunnels. The other thing is that you should get more flexibility to do transfers and exchanges, and you should get more transferability across the delta. I think we just have to evaluate those as we move forward, because there will be additional baggage. There will be additional, you know, the Delta Stewardship Council, they have some vision about how this ought to work and how much water ought to go south of the delta, and they're gonna play in this too. So there are going to be a few things that the board of directors is going to want to evaluate. Up to this point, you haven't had to make a decision. You know, I mean, it's been delayed. And what they are dealing with is not new water rights. The State Water Project has water rights. They're not changing the diversion amounts or the rates or anything like that. They're just changing the point of delivery or the point of diversion from the South Delta up to those intakes on the canal. To do that, they're going to have hearings, and they're already expecting 6 to 9 months worth of hearings. It'll be a very lengthy process where they're going to get input from all kinds of parties. And AVEK does have an opportunity to make a policy statement if you'd like at those board hearings, but that starts this month. And that's going to be a lengthy process. And before you can start any dozers or anything like that, you have to resolve that point of delivery issue with the State Water Resources Control Board. The other thing is the environmental process. They call it the ROD-NOD. It's a record of decision, basically. That's the thing that's been delayed another 6 months because Fish and Wildlife felt like they needed another 200,000 acre feet. And that's when the project proponents just said, hey, wait a minute, we need to talk about this. And that's been delayed until December. Also, an amendment to the long-term water supply contract is needed so that we can allocate costs and water supplies and improve our flexibility on the existing contract. So again, this is a update for tonight because I wanted to let you know that things have been delayed again, and I'll give you kind of a feel for things. But in response to your question, how much it's going to cost AVEK per year, it was going to be $6 to $8 million, kind of per year in addition, and that's probably a low number. But it kind of depends on how much you want to participate. If you said, hey, let's participate at 144,000, let's get 3.5% of this project, it'd be one number. If you decided something less than that, it would be less than that. But I really think that 6 to 8 million is probably what you're going to be looking at. So yeah, it's different for the Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agency than it is for San Bernardino Valley or for Metropolitan. Sites Reservoir has been studied by the Department of Water Resources for quite a while. It was part of the CalFed process. It's always been kind of an attractive off-stream storage reservoir. This is in kind of Colusa County. So you're north of Sacramento. That's, let's see, I-5 runs along there, but you can see the Glen-Colusa Canal and the Tehama-Colusa Canal. Those both take water right now out of the Sacramento River. The proposal is to build a reservoir of about a million acre feet, so 1.1 to 4 million acre feet off to the east, or excuse me, off to the west of the Sacramento River. You would divert water from the Sacramento River through those two canals into this reservoir, off-stream storage, or you would have a pipeline that goes from the Sacramento River and pumps water into this off-stream storage. The yield is estimated to be 500,000 acre feet of annual yield, kind of from year to year. This has been an attractive one for the Prop 1 funding, and Prop 1 funding said, well, we'll pay, up to half of the cost of this reservoir if you dedicate 50% of the water to the environmental purposes, and that's what you would do is you would make releases from this reservoir to either sustain colder water in Shasta or Oroville for salmon, or you would release water from this reservoir for smelt in the spring. So it's one of those situations where you could get grant funding to pay for half of it, but then you use half of the yield to do the environmental purposes.
Dan, I got a question. what I've heard, there's no human life that is for this reservoir. It's for everything except human life. And that's number one. Number two, the biggest problem, we just talked prior about the Delta fix, is why aren't they building that reservoir south of the Delta?
Director, you hit it right on the head, because that's exactly, this is north of Delta storage.
And it's crazy.
It is, I mean, I don't know if you would call Northern California farmers, if you put them in any kind of category, but they see as some benefits to Northern California. I feel like this is something that's on the table that they're proposing. I need to brief the AVEK board. I'm not, again, advocating.
I'm not blaming you, but I mean, this stuff is crazy.
Yeah, you know, and some agencies are in a different position than AVEK is, and any water supply is worth exploring.
Everybody north of the Delta should pay for it.
And that's really the way this is structured, is a JPA was formed, and the JPA initially was formed by 11 Northern California agencies. And they said, hey, maybe we can make this work. If we can work this off-stream storage in connection with Shasta and Oroville, Folsom, maybe we can get some yield out of it. We can get some grant funding to pay for half of it. Of course, we have to give half the water to the environment. But, so out of the 500,000, the Northern California guys are going to get half of that. So that leaves 250,000 for south of Delta. And of that 250,000, it would probably be split between federal and state users. So you end up with 120,000. So of the 120,000, then it's whoever wants to participate. You're not, you know, this is kind of an optional participation. If AVEK wanted to participate, let's say they allocated based on Table A. Because Met seems to be very interested in it. Kern County seems to be interested in it. So let's just say they allocate the participation on Table A. That means that AVEK would have about 2,000 acre feet. So, you know, it's not a lot of water. It's something. But
how much? And how much is it going to cost?
Well, they're not really.
$100,000 an acre foot?
Right now, all they're asking for study money. They're just saying, well, hey, if you want to join the group, if you want to be in on the proposal, you need to get your application in by the end of the month, July 29th by 4 o'clock, and it's $60 an acre foot. So that AVEK, you know, you could say, well, okay, we're in for 2,000 acre feet. You know, we'll send you a check for $60 to study this to see how it would work.
And how much do we spend on the Delta fix at Twin Tunnels for money we spent to look at the project? Didn't we spend first off 40 million, and now it's up to 140 million?
No, the numbers are in there, but the first was 140 million, and AVEK participated in that. Then they asked for another 100 million, and that's when AVEK said, you know, maybe we'll wait and see how this turns out. So you've participated in the first 140, and that's to get it to this point. So, again, Sites Reservoir, it may not fit for AVEK. You may not. It's kind of like, you know, we participate in the Yuba County deal. Don't get a lot of water, but you know, it's something. So. Again, I wanted to brief you on the board. I don't know if you even have enough interest to go any further with it or not, but I just at least wanted to tell you it was out there. They're proposing it. One advantage is that they're trying to keep the Bureau and the Department of Water Resources out of this completely. The JPA is really the one doing the engineering, putting the package together, because they feel like that's not going to be very productive to have the two other agencies involved. So they've been trying to make this a homegrown or local project, and they've kind of gotten to the point where, well, we're going to only see about 120,000, so there's some additional water if somebody south of the Delta would like to participate, and there has been interest. But again, just wanted to lay it out so that if you heard about it, or if you're wondering about it, if you want to proceed, or if you want to study it some more, it's your option.
Yes, I think it's important that we follow our due diligence with regards to this committee review it, make recommendations, and process that we've gone through to look at this proposal so that, you know, we can just do our due diligence to make sure that. And it may be a very short process, but I still think it's wise to assign it to, you know, the Water Resources and Planning Committee and see if they might take a closer look at it.
That's a good idea. Water acquisition planning chaired by
the only question I would have about this decision, because it was still very good south of the Delta, but this would possibly be a potential, like the last water that we was sold for the Delta, when we were developing that, through us and participate for that development water. So part of it almost says, you know, this is something maybe by the LA County Water Works or let somebody else know if they're looking for that extra water for development. But I still have to get past the Delta. But that would be something that we consider as our bills passing.
That's a good idea. Even if we weren't interested in it as an agency for our existing customers, maybe new developers.
Yeah, that is a good idea. Does it look like it would be financially feasible for us, but I think make it open.
I think
Yeah,
and there could be retail customers that are short on the education that may have a particular interest in that stuff.
Do you know how much support would be if they had south of the Delta?
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, that really is, Director. That's a good point, because this year we had trouble with.
This drives me nuts. We have almost 30 million people in Southern California. You know, 6 million in Northern California. And the 6 million controls the 30 million people. I don't understand this. And all the potential catastrophes that we've been talking about for the last 50 years is supposed to happen in Southern California. You know, it's crazy.
Here we go, Town Manager's Report for July 12th, 2016. The water supply remains at the 60% allocation. Lake Orville is beginning to decline a little bit. We're still right at average. And it'll be interesting as we look at the graphs to show how San Luis is declining at a significant rate with the hope that they'll be able to fill it through the summertime period when the fish restrictions are the least. And it's also the time when there's the most demand. Here we go. Here's our reservoir conditions here at Lake Orville. And you can see that where the red arrow is, you can see that the releases are very much reservoir loads declining. And to look at the same type of graph, you can see where we are with regards to San Luis Reservoir, which is south of the Delta. Highlight your point. And here's the difference between Bureau share and DWR share. So you can see where we're at.
You know what makes me so mad about this whole thing? The governor knew that we could use half of that 450,000 acre feet, closer to over 1 million acre feet of water. We didn't take half of that and fill that reservoir. He did it on purpose.
Well, I will say that there are, I recently attended a Delta compliance meeting. There is at least a 4-page legal size, both pages, forward and back, of regulations that are associated with biological opinions that DWR has to wrestle with. So they have to be compliant with those biological opinions, otherwise they're not going to be able to Delta. So it's one of those things where you basically tie both hands behind your back with some of the restrictions that have been placed by the resource agencies and the State Water Quality Control Board. So, to a certain extent, our government is our own worst enemy for providing water for the people of our state. I thought this was interesting. We talk about the drought in the country, and you can see there's really Southern California and Central California is really the heart of the drought area. This is to zoom in a little bit further, and you can see that we're still in a significant drought in our particular area here. Moving on to water quality, our water quality is stable. We have good THM results. The latest results we received we're about 30% below our goal, and the total organic content is trending downward. Here are the graphs that show our water quality at various locations as we track it, and you can see that the green line is the AVEK goal, and the red line above is the MCL. So we're continuing to maintain our THM levels within a very tight band there.
So, okay, so the green line, okay, that's our goal.
That's our goal.
I know below it. The blue, which is the
It's each blue line is a different sampling point that we have for compliance. And
why is Vincent Hill? I'm confused because Vincent Hill, is that because the water's sitting there too long?
that's part of the issue.
Dwayne, why does this chart not show any THM results for water quality in our north system?
Let's see. I'll have to check.
Because it's soft.
Maybe it's I'll have to check. Some status and updates are, as you, the Public Health Department, remember, was actually transferred over to the State Water Resources Control Board, and it has, that change has changed our permitting operations, and so our modifications to our water operating permits have taken much longer than they have in the past. So we're anticipating August and begin both our AVEK and the Eastside Recovery Well system, either August or September. We operate those facilities. We are planning to receive 2 generators later this month that will be able to utilize at a couple of our pump stations and also some recovery wells. One of the things that the board may want to consider doing, and this is kind of a discussion item in the general manager's report, is as we move into water master operations, and I'm assuming that the water master is going to begin meeting on a monthly basis, the agency may want to have a separate water master board meeting, so to speak, to discuss and advise and provide guidance to the agency representative on that board. That's something to consider. I just added the third Tuesday as a possibility. If there's any interest in doing that, and if the board wants to consider it further, I wanted to bring it up so that you're aware.
So the water master group's going to have one third?
No, I'm saying that AVEK as a board may want to have a special meeting where you just concentrate on water master issues, since the water master is going to be meeting on a monthly basis. We want to have that so that all of you are providing input as opposed to a year.
When is their meeting?
Right now, the first meeting is scheduled in August, and then I'm assuming they're going to be meeting on a monthly basis for a while. August 17th is we can get the water master report off.
And that always be now open to the public.
That's right.
Right.
All. And like I said, I just wanted to introduce the subject tonight, and if there's interest in moving that way, you can consider that.
What length of time are you advising?
Well, at least until there's a need. I mean, until there is no need. I mean, if my schedule asks me in Sacramento